Hello world of YouTube and welcome to another episode of Viral's Movie Reviews, the show where I only review comic book films, horror films, and biopics about musicians now. And I'm just kidding. This is the show where I review movies that you guys suggest. I go to the movies and see what I feel like discussing. But today I am discussing another musician biopic. It is Rocketman, directed by Dexter Fletcher, starring Taron Egerton, Jamie Bell, Richard Madden, Bryce Dallas Howard, a slew of very talented actors. Now I'm going to get the huge comparison out of the way because I know a lot of people are going to compare it to Bohemian Rhapsody. I've seen it done amongst my peers and I'm sure that other people are going to do so partially, and it doesn't help that Dexter Fletcher at least produced it. I thought he also filled in for some of the directing stuff once Bryan Singer was outed, but the research I've been trying to do does not showcase that at all. It just says that he produced it. But it's also a biopic about a British piano-playing musician where his sexuality was a big part of his life, at least to a moderate piece of the public eye. So they're going to be compared, and if I'm going to compare them, Rocketman actually made me like Bohemian Rhapsody less, and that was something I wasn't expecting to happen. I was hoping to like Rocketman, but I didn't think it was going to make me actively like Bohemian Rhapsody less. I think that comparing the two, the camera work is much better in Rocketman. I like that it's a musical, and the musical moments were incredibly well handled. I think that it showcases its actors' talents a lot better than Bohemian Rhapsody did, and I like the use of the music more than in Bohemian Rhapsody. This Rocketman is not just a cut and dry biopic. I mean, there's moments of it like that, and it's paced like a biopic, but the musical moments help tell its story. You know, the music has a purpose in the film other than, hey, remember this Queen song? Remember this Elton John song? So it actually made me actively like Bohemian Rhapsody less. But to talk about it on its own, I did enjoy Rocketman a fuck ton. It was such a fun movie. Again, the musical numbers are incredibly well constructed and choreographed. It felt like a stage show at points in a really good way. I don't think all of them are perfect. Like, I think that Tiny Dancer was a little subdued. I liked the camera work in it, but I don't think it was the strongest one, and it probably doesn't help that Tiny Dancer is a song that in more than one instance has been a focal point of a movie, so I felt like it had to kind of meet that bar, and I don't think it did personally. But it's still fun. It's still a good use of its song, especially. Like, it's a good place for it to be in the film. I thought the Pinball Wizard section was a little weird. I didn't know he did a cover of Pinball Wizard, but also I just don't think that its use in the film, like, I think it made sense for that point in the story because it was like a whirling piece of Elton John's life. It was using it as kind of a transitional piece to talk about kind of the mundane aspects of Elton John's headspace wrapped up in the fantastical. But again, it wasn't the best musical number in the film. My favorite ones in the film, The Bitch Is Back, the opener, so good. When Rocketman actually finally happens in the film, it was amazing. I loved the imagery in that. I loved the imagery in Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting. That was probably my favorite one. It was so fun. It was so fucking fun and had a classic musical feel to it that it was great to see on film. But the musical numbers aside, this also has a great use of dramatics. You know, when talking about Elton John's home life early on, his dealing with his sexuality felt very real in this film. You know, the relationship with his manager John, it felt grounded in a reality amidst all of the fantastical costumes and musical numbers and all that sort of stuff. And Taron Egerton just sells this fucking movie. He is a star in this film. His singing is so good. He nails all of these songs amazingly. Like, I was thoroughly impressed with his performance in this film. I've actually never seen a Taron Egerton film. I haven't seen any of the Kingsman films. I haven't seen Sing. I didn't see Eddie the Eagle, which was directed also by Dexter Fletcher. But I probably will now, because again, the directing of this movie was amazing. He got great performances out of everybody. Taron and Jamie Bell's chemistry with Elton and Bernie, fantastic. They had this brotherly chemistry that felt very real. You know, a lot of the performances felt real. They felt good, and I'm having a hard time enunciating what I mean by this, but they were great. You know, it didn't feel like a cut-dry biopic with their performances either. You know, and the dramatics didn't stick out or didn't contrast with the fantastical musical moments either. And I think it helps that the musical moments did tie into some of the dramatics as well. Goodbye Yellow Brick Road's use in the film was tied to a dramatic moment. I liked it a lot. I liked this film a lot. And I'm not even a big Elton John fan. Like, I like his music a lot. You know, I wouldn't say he's someone whose discography I'm incredibly versed in, partially because it is humongous, but I do like a lot of his songs, and the soundtrack itself plays like a really nice greatest hits with a lot of his great earlier works portrayed in full force here. I think that it's great that they didn't hold back on a lot of the excess and drugs that were a big part of Elton John's life either. You know, Elton John, seemingly, at least from even as an outsider to a lot of his life and discography, he seemed like a very exuberant, expressive individual when he got famous, and the more famous he got, the more that became kind of apparent, and the film affirmed that big time, you know. And I like that, again, his whole life was on full display, not just the beats that put him in a good light. You know, there were moments where it felt like you could see the full person of Elton John, and that was great. And I think that, again, the writing, the direction, and the costume work, I love the attention to detail in a lot of the costumes. I like that they recreated a lot of iconic looks that he had. And I think that, again, Taron Egerton fucking sells that shit. I mean, as a fan of musicals, as a fan of film, and as a fan of music, this hit all of those moments very well in a lot of instances in the movie, even with its shortcomings. You know, I think that it reaches a good place to end. Even though I was surprised at where it ended in Elton John's career, I liked where it ended, and it was great. This is a fantastic movie. I really recommend people go see this, especially in theaters, to see all of the hard work that went into this film on full display. I mean, just great time, a great romp in the theaters. I give this thing an 8 out of 10. And if I were to update my Bohemian Rhapsody score, I'd give that like a 5 or a 6 out of 10. This made me like it so much less, just because the effort that went into making this be a successful musical and movie sold it for me, and just embodied it as a great film that came out this year. But those are my thoughts on Rocketman. Have you seen it? What did you think about it? Let me know. If there's a film that you would like for me to discuss. I haven't really thrown that out there in a while, and I apologize, but I'm more than open to talking about people's suggested films in this segment as well, still. And yeah, let me know. I'm going to get out of here. Thank you for your support, both on the channel and on Patreon. I have been Viral Rack. You guys have been Days, Lives, and Situations, and I'll see you another day.